Good morning, and welcome to the first Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. I'm sorry, I left my script at home, so I'm reading from my cell phone, which is it's an experience for me. We especially welcome guests and visitors to our service. My name is Irita London, and I am the service associate for this service. This morning, we will welcome to our pulpit Reverend Amanda Poppei. She is so grateful to be able to connect both in person today and online. Reverend Amanda's ministry is grounded in connection. What she loves most about the congregational life is the experience of watching people find each other and through those relationships find out more about themselves. Sorry, I'm scrolling down. I'm trying to shorten this. When she's not doing all that, Reverend Amanda can be found reading. Her favorite genre might be described as Jane Austen, but make it queer. Embroidering, slightly saucy sayings, and hanging out with her family, including her amazing kids.
Our call to community this morning comes from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Edmondson Lang, who for many years served our Unitarian Universalist congregation in Burke, Virginia, kind of in the rural suburbs of Washington, D.C. Come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place.
Please join in the chalice lighting. Words are located in your order of service or are shown on the screen. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning. We gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community.
I have a reading this morning from a book that I read this past fall, winter. And I actually brought the book to show it to you because I love it so much and I want everybody to buy it and read it. Though really what you want to do is listen to it on audiobook. The author narrates it and his voice is fantastic. R. Eric Thomas wrote the book, you may be able to see it, Congratulations, the Best is Over. And it's quite funny, actually. And about midlife and about moving back to his hometown of Baltimore, which of course is near where I live now, outside Washington, D.C., and about queerness and about the experience of being Black in America and about the pandemic and politics. It's about a lot of things in a series of essays, and I highly recommend the book to you. And truly, if you are an audiobook person, R. Eric Thomas's sort of narrative voice is just delightful and moving. One of my friends actually went to a reading that he did and was able to meet him and tell him that I had used his piece in a sermon and got a signed copy for me, so it's all very exciting. Please join me in my fangirling. This particular excerpt is from an essay in which he's talking about his lifelong experience with depression. It's also about that. And and about, well, you'll see, about emotions. R. Eric Thomas. Even in okay times, there is a subterranean river of melancholy in me. And sometimes a productive afternoon is comprised of using YouTube videos of varying qualities like divining rods. I watch these videos, some of which I could recite by heart, and I find the mouth of the river, and I stoop down and place my hands in the sadness. And it feels like, God, it feels like the truth. It feels like, finally. It feels like for a moment I don't have to walk around this world all neutral. Because as much as I was struggling, I didn't look any different to the world. And sometimes when you don't look different, you start to think maybe it's not real. Maybe you're faking it or deceiving yourself. Maybe this is just what neutral feels like. But this world is not neutral, and I am not neutral. And as many times as I send my little emails using an appropriate number of exclamation points, but not too many, and have small talk with Uber drivers and try to remember if I've watered the plants or taken my pills or eaten, I still always have the thought, can anybody see what's really happening here? Which is to say, aren't we all human people walking around with all of our experiences, all of our sadness and joy and grief and hope and fear, barely contained by our skin and our adherence to decorum? I'm not saying I want to walk around all the time feeling publicly, but it seems a waste of life to never go to the depths and see what's there. I am not made smaller by the big feelings. They are the things that remind me that I am alive. They are the things that, when I'm in darkness, remind me that I'm searching for the light. They aren't always the things that I need, but I think that inside them, the happiness, the sadness, the joy, the grief, there is truth. I just want to get to the truth. I write to get to the truth. I watch to see the truth. I go to the theater to find the truth. I laugh and I cry and I gasp. And at the end, I clap and I clap and I clap until my hands hurt. I think I'll go right into the sermon now, right? Is that right, Irita? All right, okay, here we go then. Well, that was the reading. Now this is the sermon. I do bring greetings to all of you. You know, some of you know that I grew up in this congregation, but have lived for many years in the Washington, D.C. area. And so I bring greetings from the congregation that I currently serve, which is the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington, Virginia, just outside D.C. The DC area is also where your incoming interim minister, Reverend Ann, has been serving at the Paint Branch congregation. And I will tell you, she has a great reputation in our area. So I think you are really lucky that she's going to come and be with you. So I hope that's going to be a really, I hope it will be a really fruitful interim ministry for both of you. And I was personally delighted when I heard that she was coming up here. I often think when I am preaching, especially when I'm in the congregation that I serve and I'm looking out at the folks that I have known for some years now, I often think that I have the best seat in the house, that I get to watch all of you doing this thing we call church. There was one week this past spring when what I got to watch was an elder coming in a little bit late to the service. She was moving slowly down the center aisle and coming to her seat, but about halfway in, she was able to see our junior choir singing. Now, our junior choir at the church that I serve is still in reformation post-pandemic. You know how a lot of us are in reformation post-pandemic. And so it is a lot of particularly young children. And they're adorable. I'm not sure that I would say that they are going to Carnegie Hall anytime soon, but they're real cute. And so what I got to watch was the back of the children's choir bopping along in matching t-shirts, and the face of our church elder who's been a part of this congregation for 40 or 45 years, watching them as they sang. I get to watch friends find each other in the pews. Oh, come on over here, sit with me. I get to watch sometimes people bop along with the hymns. We get a little bit of dancing going on. And I get to watch people cry. Now, I know that that sounds kind of weird, that what I like to do is watch people cry on Sunday morning, but perhaps it will reassure you that if you are thinking right now, she must be remembering me from last time she was here, oh God, I'm probably not. Because the thing is that people cry an awful lot in church, it turns out. During the music, during a reading, during a time for all ages, or during a sermon, but truthfully, I don't think it's really about any of those particular things. Actually, I know it is not about any of those particular things, because sometimes people will come into church and sit down and start to cry before anything has even happened. What I think is this, that when we are at our very best, when we are the most church that we can be, when we are doing this thing called congregational life, called community, just about right, we are a place where someone can tell that it is okay to be not okay. We are a place where you can cry. A couple months back, Elmo, you know Elmo is the red character on Sesame Street. I believe I don't know what he is actually. He's just Elmo, maybe. Elmo was posting on the platform, social media platform formerly known as Twitter, and posted a simple check-in. This is what it read. Elmo is just checking in. How's everybody doing? That's how Elmo sounds if you haven't watched Sesame Street recently. There were thousands upon thousands upon thousands of responses to Elmo's tweet. An Atlantic article actually tried to cover the number of responses and the variety, although many of them were of a similar style. Honestly, Elmo, I need a hug, wrote one user. Oh, Elmo, sweetheart, we are not doing well, wrote another. Elmo, girl, I'm having a quarter-life crisis right now, and I can't get my bleep together to finish this last semester. I'm mentally burnt out, and I have a lifetime of working to go, responded someone else. Eventually, Elmo had to post a response to a tweet which included resources for mental health and check-ins so that people could receive what they needed. Elmo wrote, "Wow, Elmo is glad he asked. Elmo learned that it is important to ask a friend how they are doing. Elmo will check in again soon, friends. Elmo loves you. Hashtag emotional well-being." This is the state of the world out there. We are so in need of safe spaces to share what's really going on, to pull back, as R. Eric Thomas puts it, to pull back the mask of neutrality. That in the end, 150 million of us were ready to share with our favorite Muppet. Because we are so often asked for neutrality, I think. We are asked to respond when the question is, how are you with, here are your choices, fine, or good, or great, thanks. Even though, I don't know about all of you, but for me, a lot of the time, things are not fine, good, great, thanks. Not great actually doesn't begin to cover how things are in the world today, or perhaps in your own lives. We find ourselves in a world that feels increasingly in crisis, both our democracy here in the United States, wars and atrocities around the world, fear for our global environment. Our own lives may be filled with grief, from the sudden loss of a loved one to the ache of long-held sadness. We navigate transitions and the unknown and the space in between. We struggle with mental health, with depression and anxiety and addictions, things that add still more layers to the difficulty of our everyday. Elmo, we are not okay. Life is much more complicated and fine. Good, great, thanks. I like to think of myself as someone who is recovering from saying that I'm doing fine, although I certainly still slip up. Several months back, I was in some point of transition at home or dealing with some challenge, and during the check-in in my staff meeting, when we go around and sort of say how things are, I must have made some answer that was essentially fine, good, great, thanks, except maybe with gritted teeth and gripping onto the table. You know how that goes? Fine, good, great, thanks, I'm doing fine, good, great, thanks. Matt is the name of the facilities manager on the staff that I lead, and he gave me a gift that day. He stopped me. He's a really low-key, very sweet guy, unassuming and very wise. And he said, I wonder if you might consider saying, I'm managing. I thought, oh, that does sound more accurate, actually. I'm managing. Here I am, right? Like I got dressed and I came to work. I'm managing. One of the joys of parenting tweens and teens is what they are able to teach me, what they introduce me to that I wouldn't otherwise know about. And a particular joy with my 12-year-old Joanna is her love of introducing me to music that she thinks I would like or that would resonate in some way. In fact, sometimes we just drive around in the car listening to music. You know, we'll get to our destination and she'll say, no, I have 5 more songs still queued up, let's keep going. I assure you it's an electric vehicle. And so I have gotten to listen to some of the Gen Z musicians that I might otherwise not have found, at least so quickly. And I am struck by the way in which they are willing to name their vulnerability in their music. M. Bellhold, in the song Numb Little Bug, writes, and I just want to see if you feel the same as me. Do you ever get a little bit tired of life, like you're not really happy, but you don't want to die, like you're hanging by a thread, but you got to survive, like your body's in the room, but you're not really there, like you have empathy inside, but you don't really care, like you're fresh out of love, but it's been in the air. Am I past repair? Megan Thee Stallion has an incredible song called Anxiety, which I recommend to you if you have ever experienced anxiety. Oh wait, that's all of us. Or know someone who's experienced anxiety. Again, all of us. Excuse me while I get into my feelings for a second. Usually I keep it down, but today I gotta tell it. Not that anyone gives a, okay, that's a bleep there anyway. But everybody talking probably sucks anyway. Y'all don't even know how I feel. I don't even know how I deal. Today I really hate everybody, and that's just me being real. Since I first started thinking about some of these ideas, since I wrote the book, Taylor Swift came out with a new album. My kids and I are all into Taylor Swift. And one of the pieces that has one of the songs on that album that has caught the attention, particularly of some of my colleagues, fellow ministers, is a song called I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. Taylor Swift writes this song about being on her tour, this huge Eras tour, which you've heard of, right? Just nod. You surely, yes, great, okay. It's like largest tour of history. Anyway, being on the Eras tour and performing in front of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. When we went to the tour, there were 75,000 of them in the stadium. and being the center of attention, sparkling and singing perfectly, hitting every mark, she says, while at the same time her personal life was falling apart. I can do it with a broken heart, she sings. I think it was resonant with so many of my colleagues, with other Unitarian Universalist ministers and really clergy of all kind, because so often that is what we are asked to do, to lead a memorial service, even as we grieve the person we are remembering, to hold the space on a Sunday morning when we're actually just managing, and maybe barely that. But all of us, at different points in our life, are asked to put on that mask of neutrality, to go out into the world as though what is happening inside us doesn't matter at all. The musicians lead the way in inviting us to remove it. The artists, the poets, the writers offer their hand for us to hold. I see some of this, particularly among younger Gen Z musicians, as well in the way that my kids talk with their friends, the openness that they bring in talking about their real feelings, how they answer questions about how are you, their willingness to talk about mental health struggles. My hope is that it's not just about age, but about a shift in our culture. Last year, I had the opportunity to facilitate a young adult group at the congregation that I serve. I no longer count as a young adult. Actually, I haven't for some years now, though I do note that one is church young for quite some time after you are out of young adulthood in other venues. I loved facilitating that group in part because of the vulnerability that people shared, their willingness to go deep right away, to name the hurts that they were holding within them, as well as the joys and the connection, to know that going deep was a way to hold the sorrow together. There is a real learning for all of us, I think, within this work out of the disability justice community as well. As I have studied more around disability justice, I have come to understand more deeply that good, great, fine, thanks is literally never going to be true for any of us for our whole lives. The disability justice community invites us to live into that reality, the reality that all of our bodies and minds will change over time. We'll have experiences of struggle and disability. And that instead of covering up our challenges, that we are invited to issue a challenge to the world to meet them, to create space for them, to stop imagining us as perfect and instead meeting us as human. Now, a caveat in all of this, one that is important and beautiful and sweet. That is, not all tears in church are sad ones. I see too on Sundays the tears of relief, the tears of being seen, of finding a place where you can be yourself wholly and authentically. Sometimes those are the tears that start when the gathering music begins, the ones that have nothing to do with the topic of the day or even the events of the week, but that are about a heart recognition of being in the right place, finally. For me, creating a space where we can cry, a space where we can cry openly and together and alone when we need to be alone, where we can feel safe to let down our neutral masks and feel the big feelings, and where we can learn how to accompany each other through those feelings too, where someone sits down next to you, maybe without saying anything at all, as you weep in the pew, as someone celebrates with you when you share a joy, as someone moves with you through the world, when you are fine, good, great, thanks, and when you are managing. Doing all of that, creating all of that, that is why we do church, why we have congregations, why we build community together. In fact, I believe it may be that it is in our tears that we are most open to that other thing that congregational life brings, our connection to the divine, to the sacred, to the most holy. I'd like to end with a poem by M. Jade Kaiser. M. Jade Kaiser writes for a collective called Enfleshed. It's an online liturgy collective. I recommend it to you as well, with writers of many different identities, denominational backgrounds. This piece is called When the Tears Come. When the tears come, hold out your hands, like the last leaves quivering on empty branches, finally accepting the closure of a season. Let them fall slowly and softly onto your palms. Receive them as an offering, in praise of your strength, in honor of your tenderness, in forgiveness of your regrets, in acceptance of loss. You will find God praying with you. They'll light a candle for every tear. They'll place a flower on your hands like an altar. They'll chant softly to the tune of your weeping. No words are needed for this kind of worship. When the heart gets a moment to catch its breath and pain is released like a long, slow exhale, the sacred draws close to hear the testimony of your grief. May we find and may we build places where the testimony of our grief is welcome, where we peel back the mask of neutrality and we let ourselves be seen. May it be so. In addition to growing up here, and of course to my mother remaining as a member here, I was especially, oh yes, I applaud that too. I was especially delighted that our pianist this morning, who I will continue to refer to as Mr. Lamar for the entirety of my life, was my sophomore high school teacher, English teacher. And it just was, I was so tickled. And so I offer as closing words a reminder, as the hymn teaches us, that our lives are intertwined, that we laugh and we cry, that we find connections across the generations and out of surprising side doors and through into places we gather, that we create a space here where all of that, all of the you-ness, all of the us-ness, all of the humanness is welcome. May we keep on creating that place over and over again. Amen. And now, as Irita extinguishes our chalice this morning, I invite you to join me in those extinguishing words which are found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
That concludes our service. Thank you.